Hi guys, it's Amanda. As you can see, I have my little microphone in the frame. I used to have such an aversion to having this in the frame because I thought it ruined the composition of it, but apparently I think you need to have it in the frame for your sound to sound good. So that's a good thing to know. Anyway, that's not the point of this video. Today I'm going to be talking about the average Black girl movement. Movement is probably an overstatement, but it is a general sentiment that I've seen floating around on my For You page on TikTok. So I thought it might be an interesting topic to discuss, and who better to talk about being an average Black girl than your resident average Black girl. So who is the average Black girl?
Look, I want to start something new because there's plenty of girls like me, average. So welcome to Average Black Girl TikTok. No, we do not have the best makeup, the best wigs, or even the best looking skin. But baby, some of y'all mamas was average. So baby, if they got a man, so can we.
Based on the TikToks I've seen, she's someone who isn't exceptional in most areas of her life. She might not have the most prestigious job or education or nicest luxury apartment. But I think one of the key elements of the average Black girl is her perceived lack of exceptionality when it comes to her appearance. And I say it's a key element because I feel like in general, Black women's value and worth is primarily determined by how we look. I don't think that's a good thing, but I think generally it is true. Before I get too into it though, I think it's important to acknowledge that what is the norm or average for a Black girl can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, depending on where you live, who you know, and the type of media you consume. What I'll be talking about is mostly just rooted in my personal experiences and observations, but I'm aware that my perspective can never be truly universal or objective, which is why I also really like hearing what you guys have to say about this stuff. I don't think I'm alone in noticing that in the past few years, representation of Black women in traditional media and on social media has shifted towards a certain kind of norm. Some of the most visible Black women have lighter skin, looser curls, or long straight wigs, laid edges, Eurocentric facial features, hourglass body shapes, lashes that could take off at any given moment. I think you get the idea. And this is where the average Black girl movement, if you will, comes in. I don't think she's necessarily the antithesis to the aforementioned aesthetic, but she acknowledges that she doesn't look like that norm and is tired of striving toward it. Before we dive further into that though, I would like to thank BetterHelp for sponsoring today's video. BetterHelp is a professional online counseling service that securely assesses your needs and matches you with your own licensed professional therapist who you can start talking to within 48 hours of signing up. It's not a crisis line nor self-help, but there is a broad range of expertise in BetterHelp's 20,000 plus therapist network, which may not be available to you locally. BetterHelp is available worldwide, anyone can use it, and you can log into your account anytime and send a message to your counselor. I know that if therapy wasn't available to me online, I probably never would have explored it, and I'm so glad I did. You get timely and thoughtful responses, plus you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, and they make it free to change counselors if needed. It's more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available. So visit betterhelp.com/AmandaMariana to join the over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health. That's BetterHelp to get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/AmandaMariana. Alright, so this is going to be a pretty colloquial and casual video. I'm going to briefly talk about unattainable beauty standards, which I definitely think is at the core of the kind of average Black girl movement, but also my qualms with the general expectations of Black excellence, not just in terms of appearance. Anyway, the most enduring stereotypes about Black women are rooted in ways that Black women's bodies have been historically exploited and objectified. Over the years, these negative stereotypes have been fiercely rejected by Black Americans notably through the politics of respectability, a term historian Evelyn Brooks Higginbotham coined in 1993 to describe a belief that individual moral and behavioral reform among Black Americans could counter pervasive racist images and perhaps even help fix the system of race inequality in the United States. I personally don't believe that the behavior of Black people can overturn racial inequality in the United States. That has a lot more to do with the behavior of white people, but I do think that the politics of respectability has informed mine and many other people's reverence for Black excellence. Black excellence is very much associated with exceptional achievement in education, corporate America, or the arts, but when it comes to women achieving or being labeled as an example of Black excellence, the degree of their visibility is often determined by their appearance. Black women who are deemed exceptionally beautiful are hypervisible. More importantly, their measurement of beauty isn't arbitrary or objective. It's informed by the society we live in, which values proximity to whiteness. So let's talk about the Black beauty standard. One of the most important things to note about any beauty standard is that it's never permanent. It's kind of like a shifting target. Like I said before, the modern Black beauty standard has always kind of been informed by one's relation to whiteness. I feel like this has been mostly applied to hair and hair texture because it's one of the easiest things to change about your appearance. A lot of the time, Black hair in its natural state and even protective styles is viewed as unprofessional by non-Black and even some Black people. So straightening hair, wearing weaves and wigs isn't just an act of self-expression, it's also a form of self-preservation and survival. Over the years, as Black women's buying power has increased, especially in the realm of hair and beauty, there's this sentiment that beautification is less about striving to reach an unattainable appearance standard and more about self-expression and empowerment. While makeup and hair is a powerful medium of expression, I think it's naive to say that it has nothing to do with striving toward a certain standard of beauty. These decisions don't exist in a vacuum. They're informed by the world around us and influenced by how we are perceived and treated based on our appearance. I do think that one of the most insidious things about these beauty standards is that despite how unnatural or attainable they may be, above all, they value effortlessness. The weave in your hair should look like it's growing out of your scalp, or else you look tacky. The contour of your cheek should look like it was chiseled by a world-class sculptor, or else you look dirty. To have evidence of effort is to fail. This is a reason I've rarely worn wigs, because I do not know how to make it look like it's my God-given hair. And for someone to recognize that would be a failure on my part. It is kind of funny though, because like low-key the only people who can kind of like tell that kind of thing are other usually Black people, usually Black women. I mean, you know, sometimes they're the ones who are gonna call you out for it. White people just be like, oh, your hair grew 7 inches overnight, that's amazing. Anyway, what I really want to talk about in this video is embracing averageness. This is not necessarily advice. I'm not gonna sit here and say get C's in your classes because being average is good. I just want to talk about how the concept of averageness is honestly kind of underrated, and I hope it's not something that we are always going to be afraid of. So the first thing I want to talk about is the use of otherworldly and ethereal language to describe Black women. In 2013, the term Black girl magic was popularized by Kashawn Thompson as a way to celebrate the beauty, power, and resilience of Black women. While I think this movement and this term has generally had a positive impact on Black women, I myself have participated in this trend and used these terms, and of course the slogan has good intentions, but it does make me wonder, you know, why can't we be normal and celebrated? Why must we be magical? Normalize commenting, "Go off, girl next door," on your friend's Instagram picture. Of course, this sort of gilded language is kind of used to counteract the fact that Black women have been immensely devalued for such a long time, but I do feel like this sort of majestic terminology places an increased importance on personal achievement and exceptionalism opposed to collective gains amongst the majority, which tend to be people who are average. I feel like with the increased role of meritocracy in America, it has kind of like demonized averageness and kind of seen it as like a personal choice to be average rather than something that is a product of your circumstances and your environment. And just because things are more open and people aren't as explicitly discriminated against, it's kind of like, well, then that's your fault that you're not exceptional and amazing, because now everyone has an equal shot. But of course, accessibility doesn't always equal equality. I think because of this perceived limitlessness of being able to climb through like social ranks and economic ranks, that we also just like engineer this endless feedback loop of like self-optimization and improving. And it's kind of like, but like, when does it stop? When are we ever like still and content? Or at least when am I, not to say when am I ever like still and content with where I am? There are contradictions within this kind of thing, because I have always been a fan of having like a growth mindset and being like, I can always improve in life and in different things. But I feel like it has kind of made me actually think that I'm not good or adequate in any aspect, because I'm like, oh, but I could always like be better. I feel like embracing averageness is not necessarily saying like, oh, fuck it, let me just like not try at anything ever again, but it's more about like letting go of this phantom version of myself that suggests I should be more than who I am. Because it's like this version of myself is always like hovering above me, and it's always like, oh, well, you could be that, but you're not that, so that's like not okay. Like, you are in fact inadequate. But I'm like, you know what, maybe I just am where I am right now, and that's like the baseline. That's just like the average version of me, which is okay. I feel like I've kind of been able to reach this perspective recently, because I've realized that like for the maybe like past 4 or 5 years, probably ever since I was like a junior in high school, I've like, had these different goals in my life that I've achieved. And while it's been very great and very rewarding to achieve these things, now I'm like in this weird place where I'm like, I don't really want that much else. Like, financial stability, that would be like great. But I'm like, I don't really aspire to like do anything like significantly crazy with my life. I'm kind of like, well, this is nice being where I am, and I think that's a good thing to feel this way, to feel like happy where I am. But I'm also like, I feel like there's something wrong with me because I don't want more. Like, I feel like I'm like being stagnant. Like, I'm like, oh, I should like want more, I should create more goals for myself, but I kind of can't even bring myself to like care about that many other things, because I feel like I really like have the things that I like have really wanted for a while, but then I like make myself feel bad that I'm like not being even more ambitious, which is just like, why are you doing that? A lot of it I think just has to do with the fetishization of exceptionalism and believing that that is like the one way to achieve happiness in life, when I think in fact it's not. Especially if the society we lived in was more equal. Being average is not an inherently bad thing, but if you are in like an incredibly unequal society with not a lot of like social safety nets, being average is actually kind of very scary. So I totally, recognize that on like a socioeconomic level, but I feel like at the same time, just internally, I think it's really important to kind of like be able to recognize that you don't necessarily have to be exceptional in every aspect of your life all the time. I think like embracing ordinariness and averageness is also to kind of realize the veneer that comes with exceptionalism. So I was reading this book earlier today, and I thought there's actually a really great way of kind of seeing how irrational sometimes our obsession with exceptionalism can be, because it's kind of just like ordinariness shrouded in like smoke and mirrors and glitter. So it reads, the classical sociologist Emile Durkheim speaks of acts of consecration as the ways in which we tend to imbibe very small differences with tremendous importance and power. So Durkheim writes, in the present day, just as much as in the past, we see society constantly creating sacred things out of ordinary ones. If it happens to fall in love with a man, and if it thinks it has found in him the principal aspirations that move it, as well as the means of satisfying them, this man will be raised above the others and, as it were, deified. Opinion will invest him with a majesty exactly analogous to that protecting the gods. And the fact that it is society alone which is the author of these varieties of apotheosis is evident, since it frequently chances to consecrate men, thus who have no right to it from their own merit. I feel like that passage might sound like a little bit dramatic, but it's definitely not to discredit anyone's perceived excellence or exceptionalism. It kind of just like helped me realize that averageness, ordinariness isn't necessarily a bad thing, and it's so less far from exceptionalism that we really think. At the core, I feel like a lot of the times it's like the same thing, but it's just wrapped in different paper. Embrace being average, because it's really like not all that bad. My parents would probably hate to hear me say that, because they always tell me growing up, do things with a spirit of excellence, which is obviously not a bad thing to learn, but I just feel like we forget that averageness, ordinariness, like it's okay. It's okay to like exist and to not be the best at something or the most beautiful or whatever. I feel like I kind of just don't hear that enough sometimes. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to say. I don't know, this seems really dumb now. My camera battery died, but so sorry if this changed the orientation of the frame. I guess it's like kind of fitting for the point of this video to be like, average is okay, because it's fitting because this video is very average. Anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed this. I don't know, maybe someone got something out of this. I hope. I will see you guys in my next video, and have a good day. Bye.